Hi everyone, this is the CRM Ninja. Welcome to another episode of the Oops Factor. Today I have Chris Huntingford appearing on the show. Hey Chris.
Hey, what's up, EY? How are you?
Hey, it's all good, thanks. Now,
Awesome.
Chris recently moved to Microsoft, and I think that most people think that his official title should be community engagement because the amount of stuff that Chris does in the community is so much that none of us have any idea when he actually has time for anything else.
Yeah. That's a good point, man. I think my wife will agree with you. So if you're watching this, Nicole, yeah, everyone knows, okay? I work hard.
Chris works really, really hard. So I have to ask you, Chris,
Yeah.
recently when they announced all the new logos with Power Platform and everything else, how relieved were you when you realized that the recent Power Platform logo that you got was still current and you didn't need to change it?
So there's two things here, right? Two things. The first thing I learned is that they're icons, not logos. So Ben Vollmer, if you're listening to this,
my bad.
Thank you for the auto correction. Second thing is, so I was pretty relieved because I went and got a Power Apps logo tattoo in Vegas. And
as one does when they're in Vegas, right?
Yeah, if you buy me enough beer, I'll show you. But so I decided that was a good idea. Then I was waiting for the icon changes, saw them pop up, and I was like, yes, I don't have to have another one for a while, even though I wouldn't mind another tattoo, actually. But I'm going to just keep it. It's not going to be a cover-up. It'll be a history. Like, the caveman history when you see the little ape moving into the man with the spear. That's the idea, yeah.
Sounds cool. Well, look forward to hearing what the next tattoo will be at some point. Anyhow, so the oops factor. Tell us about an oops experience. And I mean, I use the word oops. You might happen to use a different word, but
different couple of words. Yeah, we won't
feel free, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so I've actually got a couple of really interesting stories, but I think my favorite one is so I've been working in IT for a long time. I started working in IT when I was 19 years old. I'm now 36.
So you remember floppy disks?
I do. I got one on my arm.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I remember when I first started out doing this, it was Dynamics CRM version 3, and we had just started using version 4, and I was implementing at the Automobile Association in South Africa. And I wasn't very clued up. I'd worked a lot on Interbase databases and on like Paradox tables and things and MySQL, but never on actual SQL Server, right? So I'd made an effort to learn a lot about how SQL Server worked, and I think it was SQL Server 2008. I couldn't tell you.
I mean, there is a slight difference between Microsoft SQL Server and MySQL. I remember my first job, I had no idea what SQL was. They interviewed me and they said, you know SQL, right? Because running Microsoft software. I'm like, no. And I went out and I bought the book.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what happened to me, right? And I remember working it was SQL Server 2008, and downloaded Management Studio, and it was really cool, and it was all very much on-prem. In South Africa, we didn't really do the online thing at all, even though online hadn't really come out yet at that point, I don't think. And
cloud was a buzzword that wasn't around yet.
Yeah, mate, it was rough. So I remember them installing these servers, and I had the luxury of installing. We had Dev 2, QA, which is quality assessment, UAT, prod, and then obviously the prod farm was a mix of like async was here, you had IIS was here, SQL was here, so it was like a server farm kind of thing, man. It was all split up. The architecture was really cool. I loved doing it. I loved the on-prem architecture.
It was great days, those days of on-prem 4.0.
Yeah. Mate, I remember installing CRM and like really getting everything set up. Anyway, so my job, I'd only been doing CRM for about, it must have been 2009 actually, so it was about my first year in Dynamics. And I remember getting the job as the system admin, right? And that was big stuff because previously I'd been an Interbase system admin working with Delphi version 5 and running Interbase farms and doing all that kind of thing. So this was big guns, man. And I was a support and maintenance technician at a company called Carabiner Solutions in South Africa. Well, they had just taken me on that March, and I just kicked off that project with them, I think in the December. And I'd gotten everything installed. Dude, I set the bar as far as how to install CRM, what you needed to do. I'd created checklists.
Checklists are important.
Oh man, I did everything, hey, and I was so excited about getting this thing up and running, working properly, and I'd worked with a lot of really amazing team members. My mentor at the time, a dude called Adrian Gatter, had taught me all about this stuff. So man, I was like in my element with like my server admin. And I remember it was great, man. I remember at one point the project was going really well. It was that December, and we had an issue with space on the server. And
Okay.
I'd looked at the server, and it's a stupid mistake, man. I looked at the prod server, and I had a remote desktop windows open everywhere. I remember, and at that point, I hadn't clicked on like creating different color backgrounds for each window. So I'd like fired up the dev 1 and dev 2, and I'm like, oh, those are sweet. Then I'd fired up dev 3, I'd fired up UAT, and I'd fired up QA, and everything was fine. Fired up the SQL server on the production server side, and man, it was maxing on space, like maxing proper. And then I was like, okay, run some SQL scripts, check the database size, check the table sizes. Holy shit, man. There was a database there called STG underscore. I can't remember the name. It was something random. And I was like, what is this? Why is this thing even here? Where has this thing come from? I didn't see it in my list of databases. I didn't see anything that had been. I'm like, this is random. But in my head, in my head, I was treating it like a dev box, right? So, and you don't do this kind of stuff. You do not do this, right? So I'm like, okay. So I click in the database, and this thing is maxing out, but like it's crashing dev. So I'm like, all right, what do I do? So I speak to one of the other managers there, and I'm like, what do you think we should do? She was like, we got to get rid of this thing. So no one knew what it was. And the guy that was supposed to know what it was wasn't leave. So I was like, okay, you know what? Cool, delete, dude. Scrap the database, right?
You just deleted it. You didn't just drop it, but you.
No, I removed it. And when you drop it, you can still go into the file structure and grab it there. Nope, dude, delete, hard delete that database, gone. So anyway, cool. Everything goes back to normal except for the guy that was doing all his BI cubes. And this was like weeks and months of work, right? So I'm like, so he comes back and he's just mortified that his stuff's gone. But he came back like 2 days later. And no, it was the day after, I remember. And he's like, what the F have you done? I'm like, mate, dude, what do you mean? Your database was killing our server. He's like, no, it was supposed to be because we were racking up data doing calculations for the cube. The best part is that at this point, no one had set up backups, and that wasn't I didn't have control over that. No one had set up any backups. So at this point now, we've lost a massive chunk of database, okay? Massive database. We have no backups. We cannot restore anything. We cannot even, remember, we didn't even have images then, right? So we couldn't just whip up an image and get it back. Gone. He lost about 2 months worth of work just because I hit that delete button.
Damn.
Yeah. So the learnings, right? Number one. So what I did was I was like, okay. So first thing I did, I call it the hot cold feeling. Okay?
Yes.
You go hot. You like your ears go red. You're like, oh my god, what have I done? What have I done? And then you just go cold. Your stomach drops. You're like, this is my last day at this job right now. So
and you forget how to breathe.
You do. I mean, I remember I struggle with anxiety as it is really badly, but this was another level. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to phone the CEO. So I got on the phone. I spoke to my one friend. She said, yeah, I'll do it. So I got on the phone. I phoned her. I said, listen, this is what I've done. She's like, okay, thanks for telling me. Okay, get the dude to rebuild the database structure because he had like some localized stuff. Get him to do that. But you're going to need to figure out a way to fix this. And I'm like, okay, so we tried everything. We couldn't fix it. But anyway, I was honest about what had happened. And she was actually okay, dude. Like our CEO, she was really cool. She's like, look, you're allowed one of these when you work here. And you've had your one. You'll never do that again. And dude, I've never, ever done it again. But there's a couple of things I learned, right? Number one, when you're a system admin, even if you're a system admin and you're using a SaaS product like Dynamics, make sure you set your backups properly. Don't just be moving databases.
Very important, yeah.
Yeah, don't just be moving databases around. Backups have saved me time and time and time again. I actually managed to get a backup restored for a customer, an online trial, my friend. Judson Elthop was going to actually demo it at one point, but he didn't get around to it. We got him to restore a trial from a tape backup that was 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So backup everything. Backup everything. The second thing is if you're admin, you must make sure 100% that you know exactly what is in every environment. It is irresponsible. It's the thing that I learned. Like, I am so picky about what I do in different environments, and I know exactly what's going on if I've got a set of instances. I know exactly what's in there. I know exactly why it's in there. I don't just willy-nilly move stuff around. I'm very careful about it. The other thing that I will say is that if you fuck up, sorry, you're gonna have to bleep that one.
People know what you're like, Chris.
Yeah. If you make a mistake, just say, look, don't try and hide it, because it's worse. Like, you'll get into more trouble. So just say, look, I screwed up. This is the thing that I've done. I'd really like some help. I would like to learn from this. How can I do it? Like, this open mindset. And that's what I did. Like, I learned from it. I've never made that mistake to date once, not even once.
Have they ever given you admin privileges back?
Oh, yeah. No, I carried on doing that, dude. It was actually a massive GSI, one of the large accounting firms, that I was responsible for their entire environments. And just because of that, the mistake I made at that customer, I learned, and I was so meticulous about documenting what was done, tracking what people were doing, managing my backups. That was on-prem. We were very lucky to where we are today. But yeah, that's what I learned, and it was probably the most terrifying moments in my IT career. But it was bloody well worth every moment of it, because I learned exactly what to do. And actually, I ended up becoming one of the guys in SAB. I was the first ever VTSP at Microsoft, which is like the P-Seller agreement here. And I worked with, I was the only South African VTSP at the time to work with a guy called Bruce Nicholson, who a lot of people know. And, it's because of lessons like that I had the privilege of doing stuff at, a lot larger customers. So own the mistake. That's what I learned from it.
Sounds great. Chris, thank you so much for appearing on the Oops Factor.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the time.
No problem. Everyone, we hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe. We've got some great people coming along.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you, EY, for having me.
My pleasure.